So this is for the initial sketch for the main landscape I've been showing you. So we'll do a full length thing on the landscape, and this is just way quicker. And this was so much fun to do. This was so much fun to do, right? So I'm just showing you the sketching right now. These are faber-castell brush pens. This comes from the gray, sort of grayscale package. I also have some Prismacolor brush pens that I use. This is, it's a beautiful surface. I should show you this. But I went to a frame shop and I brought some Bristol board in, right? I said, mount this Bristol on gator board and cut it like this. Just cut it up into small panels and large panels. And this whole summer I used my little setup here to do some plein air work and just paint right on these boards. This is my plein air easel. It's sort of modeled after what James Gurney does, but looking at it, it's really nothing like it. It's just, when I say modeled after James Gurney, it was the epiphany that why take a plein air easel when you could just take a camera setup, right? So this is just like a camera tripod. I bought this one for 20 bucks, ultralight. Then after I bought this one, I went to a secondhand store and picked up about 5 that were of equal and better quality for less than $20, right? And the $20 isn't that much. So I got these little mounting brackets off of Amazon. They're just to mount like a tablet, but instead of a tablet, I just got these. So I got this palette here. It's just a plastic piece. So, and then on another tablet mounting board, I mount this gator board piece. And this whole thing you can set up in the field in just a minute or two, I mean, virtually nothing. And so the whole point here was that I wanted to use the plein air easel for doing these studies because I was doing a lot of plein air stuff. So I just wanted to kind of get better at using the palette, the range of colors in that palette, and then the tools I bring as well, right? And you can see that this is, I'm just drawing here. It's super loose. As far as the image goes here, it's this, started out with just the skewed horizon. And I'm just kind of like burning through a super loose drawing, and I'm on, start with the, mid-grade tone here, fairly scribbly, and then, move to the Prismacolor brush pen. I have like little triangles and stuff. I'm going to start to scroll through quickly. There we go. Cat. Yeah, and you can see how loose I use it. There's just a lot of like multiple line stuff I like to do with it. I love using straight edges, but I like using them loosely. I like getting straight, hard, straight lines loosely so that I like doubling it up. I like scribbling. There's all sorts of stuff I like doing with the straight edge that is not. Okay, loose yet straight, right? And, you can see how wobbly this damn thing is, but it looks a lot worse than it feels. It doesn't feel bad. It doesn't feel wobbly, but close up it looks pretty bad. But whatever. So we'll move through the drawing. Yep, so I've got the palette here suspended. This is the palette I take, right? It's in a, obviously, right? It's in, a pill container. So I've got 7 colors plus some extra white. I usually keep, there's 8 colors because I have the red and yellow in here. Nothing special about this. Yeah, this is the same palette I'm using for basically everything for this series, the series this summer, right? You have the modern colors. I don't remember if they're quinacridones. It's a Hansa yellow and a quinacridone red. I don't care if the reds are warm and cool. I use them so seldomly, right? And then I have a burnt sienna for the main red, ultramarine blue, and with all this series, I used a phthalo turquoise, which is there's a Payne's gray as well, and then some mediums and things. So now the drawing's complete, let's move to the next one. It's just matte medium. Matte medium and ultramarine. You can see it's just a quick, I'm just scrolling through, right? Just a quick covering, nothing special. What do we got here? I think this is, that's just the burnt sienna. I use this all the way through. You could almost consider this entire painting study this summer to be a muse on just burnt sienna and ultramarine blue. And it's just, as far as I can tell, it shouldn't be a perfect complement, but it might as well be, because it creates a perfectly neutral gray. And you can just, it's just wonderful. And then you can knock it warm or cool just by a slight touch of the other color, and then you can build an entire palette off of that. I don't know where this is, where this gray is, but it doesn't matter. But so you can see I just blocked out sky, ground, mini palette knife. This little tiny palette knife is the same one. The only reason why I'm using such a small knife is like that's what I take for the plein air painting. I should show you this. I actually cut it down so it fits into the mobile stuff. So it's this like sort of truncated handle. Probably can't hear that because it's not picking up. All right. These are my plein air brushes. We'll zoom in on the palette. You can see that's just using the matte medium and a liquid. See that? That's a liquid Utrecht white. It's very matte. It's almost a chalky surface, right? There's no sheen whatsoever. And I'm just building pools of color. You can see it's going to be built off the burnt sienna, ultramarine with a little bit of maybe phthalo turquoise at some point. Yep, there it is. So I'm just building pools of that. Yeah, I'm just making pools of paint, splitting it off, building off the color. So there's a little more of the probably burnt sienna. It's going a little green because I have the phthalo in it. Going gray there. This Hansa, so I'm building an intense Hansa and then a more intense Hansa, super high key. And that's pretty much the entire like pool of colors. And then I use the actual pure color to kind of sweeten things up as I need. And I'll just try to run through this. Some people like to watch the strokes, some people like to watch it emerge. I don't know. There's nothing insanely interesting here. See, just darkened it up with, it might be a Mars black, but I think it's a Payne's gray. Yeah, cheap camera tripod is a little wobbly. In the mounting mechanism, it's just with ultralight. The thing is, it's a bike. It's a bike pallet, right? It's a the whole thing needs to fit comfortably on like a mountain bike, along with the rest of my other gear. And I think I'm just end up covering the sky. A couple touches here. Yeah, just super suggestive with the sky. Slightly double loaded brush. It's a watercolor brush, flat. I like flat with like super long bristles, the watercolor type. I'm keeping the brush pretty dirty throughout as well. Same color range. This is the Hance I used with probably little touches of the quinacridone red in there. But mostly I'm drawing from those pools of color I built at the beginning and just kind of sweetened it up. Super broken color. Um, pretty straightforward stuff. I don't remember how good or bad this recording is. A lot of this was just like experimenting with the recording. Here. All right. Yeah, getting a little reflected light here. This will be some like reflected light from some electric light that's happening. We got a few, we're starting to build the yellow up here. The yellow was an important patch because that's where what a lot of the light's going to be sort of that color. Try to move quickly. Yeah, trying to build a nice intense blue that's carried through uh, the next couple paintings that are of this basically of this same subject matter. Different days though, but trying to get a nice solid like mid high key mid tone, for the horizon. And I'm like basically pursuing this for the large version of this, but we'll get through this pretty quick. Make sure we're moving the brush around, moving the color around, so we put a little ding here and there of those colors, make sure it sort of shows up everywhere and it's still within our basic range here. Ah, look at that. Yeah, I start to build up color, like electric light color, pretty quickly in this round of paintings too. You're just moving color around all the time. Like look at even with the slight variations of like the pre-mixed color pools, you're still just knocking new color around all the time. And yeah, we'll just keep going with it. Yeah, I'll move past this one quick. Oof, we're throwing some dark stuff pretty early here. Oh, it's not that early. I'm thinking this is one of my other paintings, but it is not. All right. So I go through the paint pens a little bit. This is what it looks like. I mean, that's the painting. In fact, I remember after I do the drawing, it's like, oh wow, I could consider it done. All right. So I don't know. what these are, one for all. I don't know. They're in place of what used to be Sharpie paint pens, but water based. Like, so these are water based paint pens. I end up not using all these. I get all these out. I don't remember how much I actually use. But again, we have the Prismacolor like special set. This is that's the chisel, and then I got the brush pen too. This is a kind of standard selection of brush pens I use, but I don't use them all here. And then this is semi-opaque. In other words, I show you here with the old finger, it's made to not cover entirely opaquely in one pass, but it ends up covering a lot more than I thought. This is a great surface. It ended up being kind of a poster paint type surface, really grabby, really absorbent. Chisel, Prismacolor chisel. I'm essentially painting with it. It's just barely drawing. It's almost painting. Oh, as soon as I say that, I start to draw. But getting varied line work here. And so when I say it's like painting, there's a lot of this sort of chip action happening here where I'm just getting colors, but I'm getting nice variation there. And that's the whole story of this. Try not to get too continuous with any one line unless I have the straight edge, or I don't know, or unless I'm inspired. Or trying to get too long of an unbroken line, but it happens sometimes. I like that. Yeah, so when I say I'm almost painting with it, that's kind of what I mean, right? Laying in stuff like this. And that's what the chip brush is good, or the brush pen actually does stuff like that too, but I ended up doing all that. I thought I was going to use the brush pen. I ended up using the chisel tip. Let's call it a chip. No, chisel tip. Little like accents like this. Very graphic. This is very graffiti-esque. I talk about that in a later video. You're going to think it's funny to call it like graphic or graffiti-esque, but it is. And I'll show you that kind of experimental stuff later. Let's lay down some line work. Whoop. And this is nice, right? You get the pen and you've just laid down a hard edge, and you don't have to worry about, compared to a pen like this, even the square, just the square brush stroke is a soft edge, right? So it just increases your range of like hard to soft edges in your painting. Man, I love drawing here. But you can see it's not like there's no hatch work here. There's no it's very graphic and very just like right on, very direct. And I'm going to move past it. I put in a lot of the details. Usual, very loose, man, very loose, even though it's a straight. I love loose straight edge. I say that every time it comes on. I haven't really shown you much of like really going to town with the straight edge. Yeah, it's pretty much what you'd expect, Smearing with the color, kind of getting some nice accents in there. Oh, here we have the brush pen. That is one crazy brush pen. That Prismacolor brush pen. I'm barely using it here. I'm just laying down, it's such a small work. That's essentially a gigantic area of coverage, for that. But like, that is a wild brush pen. The range, it easily exceeds the Faber-Castell brush pens. Yeah, right. Don't be afraid to use your finger. But like the Faber-Castell brush pens are real nice. I like using them. I draw with them all the time. But that Prismacolor brush, the range of line you can achieve with it is something special. So I recommend everybody get that. Anything interesting? Oh, little spots here. Yeah, so this is the one for all. It's more opaque than the other one. So you use the semi, I don't know, it just doesn't have full coverage, right? So you can get a lot of these like mid-tones, or you can get a little gradient, a little smearage, right? And then with this kind of stuff, it's good for the electric light, really punch up everything. Nice accents, nice little highlights that glint off metal and whatnot. Yeah, let's look at this. So you kind of want to paint something like this solid, but you got to draw it in. You got to break it up. So I'm going to show that, and this is nice irregular line work. I'm not even smearing it. These are essentially graphic signs, and I'd rather have graphic work on it than do some kind of smear work like over here. I just want interesting line work, and it's all about the line, some spot work here. And you see how each new layer of stuff, be it paint strokes or brushes or markers or something, they're all kind of vibrating a little bit, right? So one layer is going to it's going to lay down in this certain area. And then the next layer is going to kind of refine that area and shift position slightly here and there. And it creates this tension between two layers. And they're kind of vibrating, the tension between the two layers. Then you lay a new layer on it, and it kind of creates tension between the previous two layers, right? So you start to, the more layers you build up, they start to kind of hum and move and vibrate a little bit, especially when you're altering color as you go. Then your color should be, following color theory and proper usage. It starts to kind of vibrate as well. So there's just a lot of stuff happening here. There's some architectural stuff going on here that I just wanted to use straight up line work for, and yeah, look at that. Not that I could just watch line work all day. I know I'm kind of like oohing and awing over my own, but it doesn't matter. I'd be oohing. I watch artists on YouTube now and then. I have my favorites, and every time I see a painter go to town or an artist, I'm all about it. So yeah, punch up the key a little bit. The chroma, high chroma. Yeah, I want to vary the colors here. I've since gotten more colors of these paint markers. If I could go back, maybe I'd get some more variations of color. But in the larger work, this is a study for a larger work, and in the larger work, the light color gets way more varied than on here. This is almost silly how simple it is compared to what it ends up being. But man, look at that. I don't know what I'm saying here. What am I saying? Yeah, I'm just saying what I just said. All right, we'll go past this. Technically, like that could be finished. Oh, I'm glazing here. So this is a pool of glaze, and I'm just super lightly going over the pen work, the ink work. Like technically, all the Faber-Castells and Prismacolors are India ink. So I want to supposedly, I think it's probably an India ink with an acrylic binder of some kind, right? But either way, I just want to lock it in before I do the next layer of glaze. And some of this, the white, this sort of not solid white gets locked into. I don't want it chalky. I don't want it to rub off or whatever. Building the glazes. This is just some combination of Utrecht colors. It's probably Utrecht gloss medium, or the Utrecht gel medium gloss cut with the Utrecht gloss medium to kind of give it a light medium body. Yeah, so it was cut with Liquitex gloss medium. What else do I got here? So I've got Liquitex. Oh, the gack. I talk about that. So this is essentially glazing, but it looks a little heavier bodied. So I had to use something of heavier body and then just cut it with the two usual glazing colors. So it's essentially a glaze that I've just lightened up a heavier body color. It doesn't need to be too heavy. It's a small thing, but that was just straight glaze I put in there. Looks like I'm using slight opacity on there too. That's the gack, the golden's gack, and that just helps it so it doesn't like ripple or build a skin or something crappy like the. You got to use golden. Golden's the highest quality stuff out there. So I use a lot of cheap mediums sometimes just as extenders because that's what it's best for. It's for extending, and sometimes you can just use the cheap stuff and you just got to, right? Utrecht isn't cheap stuff. It's like mid-range, but it's good. But if you're going to use cheap stuff, you got to cut it with a little bit of golden, and that GAC golden, that's it'll protect your emulsion. It'll protect it from like getting a kind of skin on it or rippling or cracking or doing all sorts of weird crap. And golden's just the dank. It's like the high quality acrylic medium. So if you're going to use cheap stuff, cut it with some of just a little bit of the good stuff, and you'll get the sort of behavior you're wanting from it. Right. So that's just ultramarine. It looks like it's quinacridone. It's a little too much here for an impasto glaze. Oh, it's the ultramarine cut with Payne's gray, probably semi-transparent. Looks like put a little bit of the burnt sienna in there. It's your standard range of colors. Looks like I'm going to have a redder version and a bluer version, or maybe I just do the whole thing. I don't remember. But I mean, taking note of this color space, this persists. The whole point was to use the same range of colors, so this persists for like the next three paintings at least. What do I got here? Did I use? That looks like the golden. Yeah, that's just the Hansa. I thought not golden, but I thought it might be the nickel azo gold, but it wasn't. Just slopping that on. For the electric lights, we got the Hansa there. Kind of mixing it together for some spots, and then I have the weaker stuff on the other spots. So this is why you glaze, right? This is why you do the impasto glaze. So it's impasto, so you're actually getting body from it, right? Um, so this isn't flat. Like this is starting to build up thickness on the canvas, even though this is a small thing. A little thick, a little impasto goes a long way, right? These reds may have been like a little overkill. I remember not being satisfied with it. They should have been a little more transparent, but we'll live with it. Nuance is nuance. But you can see how much that punched up the color, right? That made all of the color intense here. And like the yellow did it, you start getting glow effects from this impasto yellow. You start getting glowing effects everywhere here. I was hoping this would kind of have a glow effect, but it ended up being more of just a painterly effect. Same palette as before. All right, gonna mix some color space, or mix new colors, color space. Yeah, it just looks like I add some phthalo turquoise here. It's still within the color field we had before. It's just with a little more phthalo turquoise. And yeah. Yeah, another watercolor brush. Again, this is the setup I use for plein air. The point is to get this a little more toward turquoise greenish color as it approaches the horizon. It's a really weird color of sky. I mean, I could have just made up any sky I wanted, I suppose, but I was trying to keep it within the reference, and I don't like it. It's really weird. It's very downplayed sky. I usually have a uh, much more audacious sky. Let's see what we got. Yeah, and I'm just like alternatively, painting negative spaces and positive spaces. Like there's no right, well, no methodology. It's just like whatever you see. Try to keep the color variation moving, right? Oh, come on. Let's get past the blurry spot. Ooh, there we go. Yeah, I remember I wanted to lay down the white here first just to have some kind of grounding for this color, but it's opaque enough. Probably doesn't need it, but if it added some effect, all the better. Again, this is going to be like Hansa, quinacridone. Probably more pure quinacridone, but you can see like you already have like pulling the red toward the orange here, and then pulling the red toward the a cooler red. So that sign is wild. It doesn't meet its full expression in this little study, for sure. Let's look at that. Just a boop boop. Yep. And like I said, like you can see vibration, each layer is slightly off of the other layer, and that's kind of, it's painterly and graphic at the same time. Try to break up the color on a specific stroke. I paint thick. I paint thick with acrylic, or fairly thick. I mean, I know people who use can after can of paint. Just like modern art can get super thick, but I paint. I like to paint with pretty solid strokes. Even though it's harder to see here, you can kind of get the idea. Like I'm never scrubbing with paint. I'd rather just lay it on and then lay something through it or whatever. So. Little drawing action here. You can see this is it's staying like either in the purple or like this brown. So I try to keep this plane, that's facing the sky a little bit isolated. The color in the brown is purple. Nice. Look at all that. You can just see it's like this. Just you're like overlapping layers that become lights and infrastructure and all sorts of things. Yeah, see, this is like the third layer of dot I put for the light. So it gets a little more sophisticated in the larger painting, but I'm liking the effect on the smaller one. Nice. A survey of the palette. Survey of the latest close-up here of the work. What does the next one say? I think I've added a couple of marks in here, drawing-wise. But this is most, I think it's going, oh yeah, I think it's maybe that green. I don't remember. I say in my own recording, but I don't care all that much. And this is just, you know, you can see, it looks like it's the chisel tip again. Adding some more graphic line here. Dude, I just love color fields and graphic lines together like that. It's a Faber-Castell, extra small. It's great. It's a real fine tip, you know. And of course, these are like archival India ink. You know, I've talked about it, but for something that's like archival that you can literally draw on top of acrylic paint with, that like fine tips can get clogged very easily, and that one is a great tip, like the extra small Faber-Castell like archival pen. You can really draw on it and it doesn't clog up, and get some great fine line work with it. You can't feasibly get much finer than that. I mean, maybe if like if you had some kind of pen at the reservoir, like an old, I used to do that kind of stuff with old rapidograph pens. You could get a finer line if you wanted, but you're also kind of taking your life into your own hands. Problem is, like, if you try to use a rapidograph or something, I don't even know if they exist anymore. I haven't even tried to draw with those for years. But it's really easy to splatter, to get a drip or something from a rapidograph. So you're drawing over like impasto. You have like peaks and valleys here. So if you made the wrong line and it skips over something, it would just go blah and just spit. It could just spit ink all over the place. That's why these Faber-Castells are just a lifesaver, man. Even though they don't get quite as fine as a rapidograph, it's like it's good enough for a lot of stuff. Nice little just dink dink. I mean, see, look how much like those little details add. Just bink 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 bink. Throw a little lines, break something up. I mean, it's like, is it hatching, or it's just sort of simulacrum of hatch work. It's just another graphic shape you can lay down. And I got way more graphic with this because of course you have no like atmospheric distortion going on when you have a layer of black pen, you know. Now, some of the larger scale acrylics, I were to lay black pen like that, I could do some kind of semi-transparent impasto glaze and push that whole thing back, and you can actually use that to build up atmosphere. But this, you know, this is just fine. I like that. I mean, technically the line work. Oh yeah, I get a little straight edge work here. This is real nice. I actually don't use the black pen in the larger painting for this, but I lay in some of the road work with the opaque pens, and it works just great. I actually kind of like it better than that, but the line work here is fine. Oh, this area, it's like my favorite area of the whole painting. Just this damn color that I get here. You can't really see, like, this isn't the greatest color space here. I'll try to color correct it and everything, but on the live one is just like this delicious deep green, and it nice because that deep green is carried all the way through the horizon, so it really pushes the atmosphere, really pushes the space back. We have the smudgy pen here. Oh no, that one's technically not supposed to be the smudgy one, but no, that is the fine tip. That's the same fine tip that the what is it, the Sharpie had. I don't know if this is just like like an off brand or the art version of like the Sharpie paint markers, but dude, that is the best tip for drawing with opaque white. Teacher I learned this from, like these type of pens didn't exist back in the day, and I had a teacher who would use whiteout whiteout yellows over time, but it was like the only opaque white out there. You get these like whiteout pens and actually draw with it, draw opaque white. I mean, it was like a godsend back then. but but now I can get a whole paint line of opaque things and get like these like get these like start to approach midtones and like neutrals and stuff like that with an opaque pen. We're spoiled these days, folks. We're spoiled. Just little, man, these little last minute like highlights, this sort of gem like thing. You build this sort of like jewel effect on the horizon, and it's just there's no other way to go. Look at that color here. Yeah, punch up that gradient. You are spoiled. And signed. Let's see what we got. It feels like you just set up you're setting up for the next step, setting up, and every layer is like this odd positioning kind of thing, and then like suddenly you're on these like last couple of layers, and you're just punching up all these little gems, and all of a sudden you have a painting, and none of it could exist without, you know, all that sort of strategic setup. I mean, this is still the first palette knife layer scraped in, and that those still show through, right? And on the painting after this, that first layer is a yellow, but look at all this graphic work over like this overlapping kind of vibrating type of brushwork, you know, and like the nuance from like the smeared red over here. Whoop, that just kicked me back. Uh, yeah, let's see if we can get all the way over here, back past the signature. Ah, oh, just look at all that graphic work there, just drawing. This is small. It's a small painting, but I mean, I love this stuff. I love this stuff, man. Um, the next one gets pretty graphic as well, but like on a small work like this, like one stroke just goes so much further than it does. I mean, that's why you see people like inventing odd materials for larger work where they have some like some giant thing. I know teachers and professors and students who came up with some crazy stuff, uh, you know, in art school back when it was all, when there's nothing digital. It was all about like what you could come up with to sort of produce your own process. You know, look at this little nice, just a couple accents of, you know, just with the phthalo turquoise, just a couple of accents make this entire like window seem like an actual window. Windows kind of green like that, you know. But look how broken this is, and this looks architectural, you know, and it's barely even held into place. It's just like these color fields, a couple of like these gems, you know, spots, and then a couple of like well placed lines, certain kind of repetition. He was really good to practice this, because for the next two paintings I'm checking this. I'm kind of exploring the same structure. I'm like fascinated with this structure, right? With this building, and it's just gorgeous in the right light. It's unbelievable. I hate modern architecture. I like I like girders, and I like unfinished buildings even more than a lot of modern architecture. But I'm just fascinated by this thing, and so it's kind of it's been my summer project, and just a couple of well placed lines, and you get this kind of the architectural feel here. Um, there's just so much stuff going on. I want to talk about all of it, but that might be enough for now.